Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Back to School Accommodations Community Forum. Today, Natasha Trehan, the founder of the not-for-profit organization Take a Pain Check Foundation, will be presenting. Natasha herself was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis at the age of 13, and she's currently in her fourth year as a translational and molecular medicine student at the University of Ottawa. I can't even say it, so it's incredible what you do, Natasha. Natasha will lead our discussion today by sharing her experiences regarding school accommodations and provide some great resources to folks. We encourage participation, so please feel free to share your experiences with the group and ask as many questions as you like. Heather Coates will be moderating the chat box, so should you prefer to ask questions via the chat box versus putting your audio and video on, that works for us as well. We will make sure that we will try and address as many as the questions as we can. I will now pass this over to Natasha. Welcome, Natasha.
Thank you so much, Leanne, and thanks everyone for joining today. I will try to keep this as informal as possible. I do have a slideshow prepared, but I also have a few interactive questions as well. But I'm Natasha, and I do live with juvenile idiopathic arthritis. I was diagnosed when I was 13 years old, so it's been a while. I am 21 now, so I've really experienced accommodations in different sections of my life so far, including elementary, high school, and university. And so today that's what I'll be talking about. This is a disclosure, and I kind of gave you that. That's a picture of me. And so before I start to talk about my accommodations in elementary school, I kind of want to know who is in the room today, perspective wise. So I'm going to present my other screen. I don't know if anyone's used Slido before, but if you haven't, I will share a link in the chat, which you can click the link, and I'm going to release our first poll. So let me know when you see that on your side. You can either scan the QR code or click the link in the chat, and let me know if anyone's having any tech issues with that. Okay, so different perspectives. We have some high school students, healthcare professionals, others. And if you are an other and you would like to put put it in the chat if I did not kind of cover that, you totally can as well. We have some parents. Okay, nice. So I think before I start, I'm going to launch my second question. And my second question is, what do you currently know about accommodation? So feel free to type it in and then we can also discuss this out loud. I'm kind of curious to know, what do people know about accommodations, just to understand your knowledge about it before I dive into it. So yeah, just feel free to type and then we can discuss. Okay, so our first answer is that, accommodations, it needs to be student-centered, which I totally agree with that, 100%. I don't know if anyone wants to, if you wrote that answer and you feel comfortable elaborating, you can definitely like raise your hand and do that. But this is anonymous if no one wants to talk about it out loud. Yes, Michelle.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I got multiple screens going on. So yeah, that was me who entered needs to be student-centered. My background is occupational therapy with the Arthritis Society. So I see both pediatric and adult population. So I'm often recommending accommodations for little preschoolers all the way up till university students. So definitely the same accommodation is not going to fit everyone across that span. So I'm typically making my recommendations based on the history, the concerns, the physical exam. And so that's what I meant by student-centered. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing. Does anyone else have any answers they'd like to share about what they currently know about accommodations? Okay, so I'm also gonna launch my last question, which is what concerns you most regarding accommodations? I think that this is pretty interesting just because when you hear accommodations, I think a lot of us do have concerns. And if you don't, that's amazing. But I'm curious to know if anyone has any concerns. And hopefully we'll be able to address them through the presentation, if anything, and I'll be able to provide some guidance on what you can do if you have some of those. Yes, stigma is a big one. Same thing here. If you want to elaborate on any of your answers, you totally can. Just feel free to raise your hand. Teachers don't listen, so kind of being like denied or, yeah, that's a big one as well. The processes, so like how do we get accommodations? Yeah. Okay, well, thanks everyone for participating. Now I have an idea of what my presentation will be even more, but I'll start off by, oh, I know someone also said lack of information, so we'll talk about that as well. So I'm going to start off by talking to you a little bit about what it was like when I was diagnosed in grade 8. And I think honestly it was really rough because not only did I now know that I have this diagnosis, I was trying to process it for myself, understand what it was, and then I realized I can't do anything most things that I could have done maybe a month ago at school. And so some of those accommodations that I ended up getting were I didn't have to go out for recess. I had a scribe. I wrote my tests in another room. I had extra time. And like for music class, I didn't need to hold any big instruments anymore. So just like very minimal changes that did happen. Whereas, now at university, the recess, the music doesn't really apply here. But back then, we had to go out for recess and we had to play an instrument for music. We had to participate in gym class. So I had different accommodations for that. I remember for gym class, I kind of just sat out in elementary school. I didn't really do much, which also then again brings up people making comments saying, oh, you're so lazy, you're so lucky. And we'll go through a little bit of what that was like. But those are just some of the things that I got when I was in elementary school. Talk a little bit about challenges. So I listed some of those accommodations that I get. I got a scribe, so it's because and when I live with arthritis and like the joints that impact me the most are my fingers, my wrists, my feet, and my ankles. So I'm really grateful that it hasn't progressed anywhere else. And so I kind of just need to figure out with those joints, like what are the different tools I might need in school to help me out. And so here are some of the comments that I did receive in elementary school despite having those accommodations. So I was told that I had dyslexia for the artwork that I created in art class when really I had arthritis. And that was really hard because I didn't want to participate in art class anymore, being told those comments and being diagnosed with another condition that I don't have. A lot of students made inappropriate comments about my swollen fingers. You think that it would just be teachers that you have to deal with, but no, there's also the students and the peers and the faculty and so many other people that have comments when it comes to being in a school setting. I was also told that I was walking too slow because my feet were super inflamed. I had other peers say, oh, Natasha, you're walking so slow. Why do you walk so slow? Or that I was really lucky to stay inside for recess and other people wish that they were me. And so those are just like tiny comments that I can still remember to this day that did impact my life significantly. But I think over time I've realized that these comments are so minimal, and in the grand scheme of things, they didn't actually matter. Like if I look back at it now, at that point, it did make such a big difference. But looking at it now, someone saying that I walk too slow really didn't impact my life now. I'll talk a little bit about the high school process, and In elementary school and high school, my parents were heavily involved in this process compared to university. So my parents had meetings with the school board. We had regular meetings. And at one point, when the school board and my teachers were not accommodating me, my mom reached out to my rheumatologist and asked her specifically to reach out to the school. And so at that point, oh, hi, you have a question?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, I don't know if this will be addressed like later, so I'm sorry if I'm just jumping ahead. We can uh just ignore the question, but you mentioned your accommodations in elementary school and something like holding a big instrument that kind of stood out for me. Is that something that you requested specifically, or was it just kind of common accommodations that are considered when you do have like a arthritis or chronic illness, and or did you specifically request those?
Yeah, so for elementary school, from what I remember, I just addressed that directly to my teacher or the principal, saying these are a few things that I won't be able to do. I think my parents were heavily involved in this. I don't think I personally said that directly, but I kind of, when I was going through these general activities with arthritis, I realized like I can't actually hold the trumpet anymore, and I
Mhm.
can't play the drums anymore. So alternatively, I was told to do like music theory on the side. I mean, the alternatives are not that great, but it is something to still participate and be engaged in the class. So for that, that was sort of what I had to mention, like I won't be able to play this, and then the teacher has to find a solution. I mean, the teacher doesn't always find the solution, which is what we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, it's something that I had to mention. They didn't kind of look at me saying, "Oh, if you have this condition, you don't have to do this anymore."
So it's important, even at that level, to kind of like self advocate and have that open communication with your parents to really talk about what are those extra little things that might be harder for you to go through than just extra time on a test or writing in a private room.
Yeah,
Um, that's
exactly.
interesting. Thank
Yeah.
you. I just wanted to double check that.
And if anyone else has any questions, feel free to also interrupt me. Okay, so going back to just kind of high school, so I found that the teachers were not really listening to my needs, and even though I was articulating them, they weren't listening. And so my parents got involved, and my parents also found that nothing was changing. And so then my parents asked the rheumatologist to reach out to my school specifically. So I remember that my rheumatologist had to actually give a letter saying that I'm diagnosed with this condition, I need accommodations. But aside from giving that letter to like the principal, it didn't actually do much. I still had lots of challenges. So this is what my mom wrote to my rheumatologist specifically. So in her email, she wanted the rheumatologist to discuss the lack of knowledge with the illness and would appreciate it if she could provide any ideas on how the school can gain more awareness with respect to autoimmune diseases. So it was a lot of like lack of awareness, lack of knowledge and understanding, and so my mom requested that the rheumatologist kind of help reach out and facilitate that, because at this point, after I've tried my best, my parents have tried my best, our next best person to reach out to was the rheumatologist. I wouldn't say that that changed much though. Like my rheumatologist did try her best, but you'll always find teachers who may not want to accommodate you. So I'll talk a little bit about my challenges in high school. And honestly, when I was creating this presentation, I had to dig up some of these things through emails that my parents wrote and I wrote, to remember some of just like those smallest things that did kind of impact me. So I remember, so I'm currently studying science, and I remember that I had to take chemistry as kind of a prerequisite for university. And so in my grade 11 chemistry class, when I was writing a test, my teacher told me I don't get extra time. And so, just some context, in high school, you get an IEP, which is an individual education plan. And so, you need to let your principal or teachers know that, and you get assigned a learning specialist as well. So, I think this is probably a little bit different high school to high school. But I reached out to the principal, who then let us go to a learning specialist in, or special education, as is probably what they call that in high school. And so we're given one person that we work with to come up with a plan together. I'm actually going to show you a screenshot of that plan as well in the next slide, so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. or maybe I'll show you that now. Okay, so this is what my IEP looked like. I had to dig up and try to find that for everyone, but these are the types of accommodations I had in high school. So you're not allowed to bring your own computer, but they had something called a SIA computer. So I used that and I requested that through my school to get a computer. So assistive technology, alternative ways to kind of respond to questions and assignments, getting a scribe, frequent breaks, providing online textbooks. I'm allowed to take pictures of class notes on the board. There's also different types of accommodations. So when it comes to environmental, I was allowed to use the school elevator if my feet were swollen. Also, something really interesting that I didn't know at that point was allowed is I found that it was hard for me to lift up my backpack from the ground. And so they let me put my backpack on the table. And so it would just be easy for me to pick it up instead of like going all the way down. So that was a pretty interesting accommodation that I got. Um, and then we have your like assessment accommodations, which is like alternative supervised setting. Some of them are very, very specific because I've had so many concerns that they had to make it super specific. So, for example, reduction in the number of tasks assessed used to assess a concept or skill. So, for example, if there are 4 questions assessing the same skill, I would only have to do 2. So it's very specific just based off of the challenges I had that they put it into this documentation. And then it also mentioned a lot of things about math and science because those were the hardest for me just because of my fingers being swollen. So a lot of my IEP was based off of some of those subjects. Does anyone have any questions about IEPs and what that looks like or questions about high school accommodations? And I'll go back a bit. Okay, if not, I'll continue. So,
Natasha, I do have a question.
okay.
Hi, so it's not just talking to the ether. Your accommodations, did they have to get funneled through a specialist at the onset?
Do you mean like a specialist, like healthcare specialist or a
Yep.
specialist in the school? Oh,
Yeah.
from what I remember, there was a form that my rheumatologist had to fill, and I think that stays at every point of your life. There's a letter you need from your rheumatologist or a form or something like that. But in terms of what I needed specifically, my rheumatologist was not involved in this process. Like, as I kept going through the grades, I kept adding this with the learning specialist at school. So, like, my rheumatologist, I don't think she said, "Hey, Natasha, I think you need a reduction in the number of tasks." Like, that was me talking to my learning specialist based off of experiences in high school.
Right. So to get you linked up with an IEP or a learning
Yeah.
specialist, you do need that door opened by a specialist, and otherwise it's sort of up to the Board of Education that you're with.
Yeah, so that's what occurred for me. I think it makes the process much like easier as well. When they'll ask you for like an official documentation of your diagnosis, like 100%. So I think
Okay.
because of that, that definitely helps in terms of getting everything started.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
I
Yes.
also just had a question. Did you find the specialist to be very open with like communication and accepting of what you needed, or did you find that you needed to even advocate on that level?
She was super accepting. I don't remember it. Well, honestly, when I was 13 initially diagnosed, I don't remember a conversation about accommodations, but maybe I just have bad memory. I think I was like processing my condition too much that I don't remember. I think my parents were involved with that conversation with the rheumatologist. But in terms of high school and like then I switched pediatric rheumatologist as well. Um, Super accepting. Like I needed this paperwork to be done. It was done like that day, and you just need to be on top of it. You need to make sure that all these things are done as soon as possible, so you're accommodated as soon as possible.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll go back a bit. And so this IEP document was given to all my teachers. So all my teachers know Natasha has these accommodations in high school. If you have any questions, please refer back to this document. But despite that, I still had challenges. So at one point, my chemistry teacher told me to show her my wrists and to prove that they were actually swollen because it's unfair that I get extra time compared to other students. So I mean, I ended up crying that day, and then I quickly went to the learning specialist because I was so upset. And the learning specialist said, "Hey, Natasha, like just write your test in this room, don't worry." And so they are like your number one supporters, like your special education learning specialist. And so I continued to do my test in that room with the learning specialist and forgot about my chemistry teacher saying something like that to me. And then also by the same chemistry teacher, I also was told to change my career path if I'm not able to handwrite, which for context, I just applied to medical school, so I don't think that that matters. And I'm just letting people know that like despite these comments, like you can do so much. And so these are just very interesting comments that I received. I also forgot about this, but recently remembered that I had to take grade 12 chemistry outside of school because they couldn't accommodate me, and they were not willing to allow me to take it. So there's a comment I got from my vice principal in high school saying it is not a great idea for her to take up grade 11 chemistry next semester. She should consider moving to the applied science program just because I could not draw a diagram. All these comments are like, forget about a career in medicine, a career in science, because you can't handwrite, you can't draw a diagram, we don't want to accommodate you. And so I actually had to, yeah, my parents put me in grade 12 chemistry outside of our school. And I mean, I did well. I got into a science program for undergrad, so that's totally fine. But I just had to go out of my way to find an alternative solution, being declined those accommodations. So that's just one way you can go about it. You can find like, I also found chemistry tutors to help me outside of school. So we would sit for hours and they would scribe what I had to say to practice my homework. So some of it does require quite a bit of like money allocation towards this. Like because my parents did have to pay for that tutoring and my parents did have to pay for the chemistry outside of school. But ideally, like you want to continue to advocate, but at some points of your life, you do get kind of tired of it and just realize there are alternative solutions. But just kind of think about those. And I think my parents and I just had no other option in terms of how I wanted to do chemistry at that point, and it was we needed it in order for me to apply to undergrad, and I didn't have that much time to sit and fight for my rights at that point, so I just ended up doing it in another school, but I did the rest of my courses here. I also had different shoes, so I had ergonomic, like it was like foamy shoes. It was really nice. Honestly, it was like Adidas shoes, but I had so many comments about it.
Natasha, so sorry to interrupt. I think we just have a question. Michelle might have a question.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Natasha, can you just elaborate on what that means of taking chemistry outside of school?
Yeah. So I took it through Blythe Academy. If anyone's heard of that, I think it's a private online school that you can enroll with. And so for example, even for university right now, I'm taking a course through Athabasca University, which is an online asynchronous course. So I'm taking physics through there. That is not because of accommodations, that's because I need to take it, but just like there are different schools that you can take some of those online courses if you feel like you might need to do it at a different pace, if you might need to kind of like, yeah, like at a different pace, or if you're not getting accommodated, you want to find another school that you can take some of these courses at. I took it through Blythe Academy and it was still valid for my transcript and stuff. And so that allowed me to get the accommodations with them instead of my actual school.
I also just have a question about that. Did you need to have any transfer applications or anything done prior to that, or were you able to just register for the course?
I'm pretty sure, so I don't remember that much about high school, but I'm pretty sure how it worked is that I did register, but you have to let your school know, like your high school know. Any school that you are like getting a transfer credit from or anything like that, you have to let your current school know. And so I think they were like more than happy to let me do it somewhere else because they didn't want to deal with my accommodations. Um, so yeah, you can register online and then you kind of just like get it transferred to you get their transcript, you send it to your school's transcript and they kind of merge it together. So yeah. Any other questions about that? Yeah, so not only did I have kind of like the actual academic accommodations that I was feeling that I'm having all these challenges, it was like shoes that I was wearing that made me feel comfortable to walk long distances in high school, people were making comments saying they look like fish shoes, which I don't even know what that means. So there was that. My parents recommended, because I was wearing a backpack that wasn't ergonomic, but I thought looked really nice. And my parents said, "Oh, like you should get like a backpack where you can like roll it." And I was like, "No, people are gonna make fun of me." And so like there's just so many comments that you get from students that make you change your decisions on what you want to do. So I changed my shoes. I bought new shoes, which honestly I shouldn't have done, but I think because you're in that situation, you quickly just like try to adapt with everyone else. I tried to find, luckily my inflammation did get better, so it wasn't that big of a deal for me to try to wear like the Adidas like shoes that everyone was wearing, which was like Adidas Superstars. So I kind of tried my best to fit in with everyone else, which made it really challenging on that end too. Um, but yeah, these are just some of the challenges that I did face. And since we have a couple of parents attending this session, I want to talk a little bit about some tips for parents. So I think for me, my parents were like my number one advocates in the school setting. I honestly would not have known what to say to a teacher or like anyone when I was diagnosed or even a couple of years later. So I think it's so important for you as parents to listen to your child's concerns and be proactive about it. Ask them how their day went, believe what they're saying, hopefully, and communicate. I think communicate with all the different people involved, with your child, but then also communicating with the school staff. If there's a nurse at school, all those different people that need to be involved in the care team. It's often also not really common that you meet with the school board. I think because our situation was very like escalated, where the teachers weren't listening, the principal was trying to figure something out. We met with the school board multiple times. Usually, if it's kind of resolved and you get your accommodations at the teacher level and principal level and they can sort it out like that, then the school board is not involved. For me, it was quite different. Also say that using like their technology and for accommodations and all these different things, I did win an award for accommodations and utilizing accommodations in high school, which was interesting. It's called the Ignite Graduation Award. So if anyone's in the York Region School Board, you could look at that as well. So if you sign up to use their technology, like assistive and adaptive technology, it is a resource and you could get an award for your efforts in like trying your best to use technology to help you kind of pursue schoolwork. So just a side note there. And then I think looking at my parents advocate for me allowed me to learn how to advocate for myself when growing up. So in high school, I was slowly learning what my condition was, but on top of that, I was seeing the way that my parents had these meetings, how they articulated their concerns, how they listened to me, how they had these open conversations. And so that allowed me to learn how to do that because little they know in university, my parents are not involved in that process. And so I'll come back to disclosure, but I want to talk a little bit about the major difference. So in university, students are responsible for requesting accommodations, providing documentation, and communicating their needs to professors and the Disability Services Office. However, in high school, accommodations are often arranged by school staff, with parents playing a significant role. That doesn't mean that parents are not involved in university, but I don't see parents often being involved in university accommodation decisions, especially for myself. And that could be different case by case, condition by condition. But for me, I don't think that there's a space for my parents to be involved in the discussion. There just hasn't been the disability office saying that, oh, hey, can you bring your parents to this meeting? Or having my parents even kind of have a say in it. Like they haven't allowed that to happen. So I'm just assuming that I'm not allowed, but I could be totally wrong too. But it's just, I think they want you to, they want to show you that you're getting independence and you're gaining that independence from high school to now. And so there is that difference. There is a comment which I will read. Should I read it now? Or can
You can address it now if you'd like, because it has to do with high school. So
okay,
it might flow better.
So the comment is, when you were in high school, was your parents constant asking and probing of your well-being on a daily basis? And did that annoy you? I'm experiencing this now that my daughter is into this diagnosis for 2 months. She seems to clam up or annoys with constant asking of concerns. Okay, I see. So I didn't find my parents constantly like asking me how I was doing a lot, but I think it depends on your condition. I would say like my condition is like pretty well managed, and I didn't find them being like, "Hey, how was your day?" like every single day. I think I went to them saying, "This teacher didn't treat me well today. Can you please like help me reach out to whoever?" So it was more like me being proactive and saying that I have had these concerns today and these issues today at school, and like I need to reach out to someone or we need to do something. Um, but that is sort of how I went about it. I find that like my parents, they did ask me here and there. I didn't find it to be annoying in any way or frustrating, but I see as like someone in high school, it could be a lot to handle and manage, knowing that like you have your health condition and then you have these accommodations and then like everyone's asking you questions if you're okay. I don't know if I'm totally answering your question, so you can also unmute your mic if you feel comfortable as well. I don't know if I addressed it entirely.
Well, I think I'll chime in here too a little bit. I think um, being a teenager is tough enough, you know, and going through school and social aspects and what have you. You add a diagnosis on top of that, and it becomes even more challenging. And especially as you mentioned in this chat, that question that your daughter is only 2 months into her diagnosis. So as Natasha's addressed, it's a lot of learning around whatever that diagnosis is, and better understanding it. And I'm sure just keeping the lines of communication open are you know, really important. And you know, I think as we've mentioned here, and Natasha keeps reinforcing, there are a lot of accommodations that are available. And I think if you share that with your daughter, she'll probably come around to what will work for her given her condition.
Yeah,
Thank you for your answers. My daughter is diagnosed with lupus, and what I have talked to the high school, and the counselor are very accommodating, and what she feels like is she doesn't want to be viewed as special,
yeah.
and she want to tough it out. And with lupus, she has to drink a lot of water, and I did bring it up and say that she may need to go to the washroom more often because she's drinking so much more water. And her concern was just started school 2 weeks ago, and she can't afford to miss the talk from the teacher as she gone to the washroom, that she feel like she might be missing out on important lectures. And yesterday, one of the teachers made a comment that some students should have gone to the washroom during lunch break. And she felt it wasn't directly addressed to her, but she felt like, oh, shoot, I should not have, like, should I be able to go to the washrooms too? But the counselor ensured us that all the teachers knew about her condition, but we're not quite sure if they actually knew. And if she were to stood up and have to go to the washroom, what other people's going to view, what the teacher's going to say. And, you know, I always say, you know, it is your condition. It's not responsible of other people to accommodate you. You need to be aware. That's what we have been approaching. And I don't know. It's just new to us right now, so we're not quite sure.
And I'd say like it definitely takes time, and I wonder like if she is missing certain sections of it, because I remember I had something similar to that where I had to go to the washroom a couple extra times compared to other people. I wonder if like the teachers have their like lectures or like things recorded if she does miss something, or if she can get notes ahead of time, or if there's a note taker in place for her. Does she have any of that yet?
No, she's capable of writing. She doesn't have any joints pain.
Okay.
And medication, I think her symptoms are mostly dealing with the side effects of the medication that she's on. I know this is not a topic for medication, but has anyone, any parents or any buddy in this chat have approached holistic, like rather than on medication? Have you tried approaching eating more healthy and have anybody tried it?
I
And
have.
been
Yeah,
okay.
I definitely have, and I can talk a little bit about that as well. But if her joints are not hurting, I wonder if she can get like recorded lectures at least. Like if she's gonna miss a couple minutes and stuff. And I totally understand like feeling different because you're getting these accommodations, but in the long run, none of that is gonna matter. And I'm saying this now, but I also felt that way when I was initially diagnosed.
Yeah.
And it's so tough, but getting accommodations is like the best thing I've ever gotten in my life. It has like allowed me to succeed in school. And I think that that is like super eye-opening to like a lot of people. And at first, a lot of people don't want to get accommodations because they're gonna feel different. But I wonder if there is like a balance towards some of the accommodations she might want to get. Like if
Yeah.
it is the bathroom, like, and also like letting the staff know that that comment just makes her feel uncomfortable, even though it's not directly to her, then maybe they can word it differently or say something else. I think just always addressing those concerns, like
Yeah.
off would be good.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
for the recording, they have just implemented this new rules, no cell phone in the classroom. Everything has to be tucked away. Recording might seems a little bit too, you know, I told her as much as possible, try to adjust, if teachers talking about important stuff, maybe hold your pee and then go after when, there's a break. But yeah, I just wanted to hear your experience.
She can get an accommodation for like recording itself too. Like she can put you can and I have it in university now. Like you're allowed to just put you can put your phone in the bag or in the front of the classroom. As long as she gets an accommodation for that, she should be allowed to do that.
So she would stand up and go to the washroom, but press record or a voice memo
Like,
on the phone.
I would say just start the recording from the beginning of the class. You can put
Oh,
the phone in your bag still and still be recording it, or put it in the front of the classroom if she arrives a bit early, and then at the end just collect her phone and that's it. Or keep it near her, keep it in her bag, but it's still running while she goes to the bathroom. And you need to get permission from the school to do that, but it is an accommodation that is available.
okay. We will explore that. Thank you.
You can
I
also
also,
ask the teachers if they have, because they would have presentation notes that they might be able to share with your daughter.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
I also just wanted to add that Natasha will be sharing her social media and everything at the end of the presentation. And sometimes hearing it from a parent is a bit harder, but maybe you just advise her to maybe follow Natasha and her go on her website for resources. I'm sure if she wants to reach out, Natasha would have a conversation with her so that she doesn't feel like she's alone in this journey. And sometimes hearing it from someone going through something that you went through or someone that's similar in age is a little bit interpreted a little bit differently. So sorry to speak on your behalf, Natasha, but she does share her resources at the end of the presentation if that's something that
Yeah,
might be a good idea.
like
Yeah,
if
that's a
you
great idea. Thank you.
yeah, if you and your daughter, just your daughter want to like chat with me privately, like we can definitely do that.
Okay.
And I can talk about the holistic stuff as well on the side because I still have a couple of things to get through for
Yes, sure.
accommodation.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
Any other questions before we continue? Okay. So talk a little bit about disclosure of your condition. It's a pretty interesting topic just because not everyone wants to say, "Hi, I'm Natasha. I have JIA. These are the accommodations that I need." You don't have to do that. You are not required to tell anyone what your condition is, aside from your learning specialist who needs to have that documentation prepared. Professors, teachers, school staff, they don't need to know about your condition if they're accommodating you, as long as they have forms or other things in that sense. So you don't have to disclose it. For me personally, I find it to be easier to disclose it, just because I feel like hopefully they'll understand it a little bit better, even though they probably don't. But I'm just thinking maybe there might be more of like a personal touch to it, where they're gonna be like, okay, she has this condition, this is what she can't do. But you don't have to say I have this. You can just put the forms in, send your IEP, and that's it. They should not question you about what condition you have and why you need accommodation. So yeah, that's just my little piece about disclosure, which we already talked about this. So the best time to reach out to the school is as soon as you're diagnosed. Talk to your rheumatologist, talk to any specialist, say, and most likely the specialist will say, hey, like when you're going to school, these are the changes that are going to happen. And so the best time to reach out would just definitely be when you're diagnosed. And then after you end up being diagnosed, you go through school again one more year. So a few months before school starts, make sure you reach out again to make sure things are prepared when the school year starts and not delayed every single year. Make sure that your accommodations are also not expired. Recently, my accommodation got expired, so I was denied to get extra time, which made no sense because I've been in the university for 3 years. But and I'll talk about a story related to that actually really quickly. But I was writing a test and I went to the accommodation services in university. I'm supposed to get extra time, 100% extra time on my test. And they told me that I'm not allowed to get it. And I was confused because I've had extra time for all of my life. So there's no reason why it's being taken away from me now. And they're like, sorry, unfortunately, you only get 20 minutes on your test. And I said, oh, well, I'm not going to write my test if I don't get accommodated. And 5 years ago, I would have never said that. But now I know what my rights are. And I know that I'm not writing that test unless I get accommodated. And so I told them that. And I think they were like, oh wow, like she's actually saying that to us, like we need to figure out like what the concern is. So then they called their manager and they talked to their manager and they came back to me saying, hey, you can write your test and you can get the 100% extra time. So quickly did I just quickly advocate for myself, say this is what I need, and they said, okay, you're gonna get your extra time. So just constantly advocating for yourself and saying what your needs are so important. Don't write the test if you're not going to be accommodated. Always make sure that you are being accommodated. And I think even like throughout going through accommodations in school, I've reached out to PTs and OTs to help me out, because you can get all the accommodations that you want, but you can still be in pain every single day. You still need to figure out like what are some tools you're going to use in school that the school may not provide you. Like right now I'm using a gel pad to place my wrist when I'm presenting. So just those little things are things that I bring to the test room. And so this will go into my accommodations. And I learned about these tips by seeing an OT and like a PT who helps guide me to create some of those tools or get those tools that I might need. These are just some steps to take. I know we're talking about like the how and like the process to get accommodations. This is mainly towards like university, but it's very similar in other cases. So you're going to contact your school's academic accommodation, learning specialist, principal, whoever that is, as soon as possible. You're going to set up a meeting with them and you're going to figure out what is available and what your needs are. So I'm going to show you a list of my accommodations that I have right now. You'll see the difference between the university and the high school ones that I showed you too. You're going to complete any paperwork and get what you need from your physician, whether that is like a diagnosis paper that's saying, hey, I'm diagnosed with JIA, and a signed document, or right now in university, my doctor had to fill out a full-fledged form that says that my doctor say, does she need extra time? Does she need this? Does she need that? So working with your doctors, because your doctor may not always know that you need extra time. So my doctor and I filled out that form in person and I said, yeah, I will need this, I will need that. And then they said, okay, yeah, that's fine. And then they signed it off. Regularly scheduling check-ins with your learning specialist. I don't do this anymore because I found that I know what I need and everything's working out well now. But at the beginning, the first and second year of university, I was constantly scheduling meetings with them because I needed to be on top of things. I wouldn't have note takers. I wouldn't have scribes. I was given a French scribe for an English exam. Like just so many random situations that have been happening with these accommodations. So just really trying to advocate for that is so important. And then in university, you get a portal. So you actually have to select your accommodations for each course before a deadline. If you miss the deadline, you don't get accommodated. So you need to make sure that you're on top of that. In high school, that wasn't the case, but in university, there are deadlines because they have so many students to accommodate. So you have to make sure that you're looking at those deadlines. And then before school starts, email your professor or teacher letting them know these are your needs. I don't quite remember me doing this in high school, but I do it in university now because in high school I felt like it was my parents, the principal, the teacher all talking together. And so I didn't find that I needed to send out a special email, but they did get that IEP. So these are the accommodations that I have right now. And so I do get to record my lectures, and that was just a recent thing that I got. And so my teachers know about it because I have an actual form that says I can. But these are just some of the options that I get. And these are just some challenges that I faced over time. People won't always understand you. I'm facing quite a lot of challenges in terms of professors not understanding that I need accommodations to this day. I am currently like going through the dean, the vice dean, and talking about accommodations to them and how can we make these programs in this university more accessible for students. And I think this applies to lots of different universities. People won't always believe you. You can also be denied accommodations, which I gave you a situation about. And then sometimes your accommodations won't be enough that they provide you in school. And that's why I had to go to private school to do that one course, or I need to go see an OT to find like maybe I need a wrist brace or maybe I need a pencil grip or something like that. There will be stigma and judgment from people. And I mean, it's easier to kind of say like, don't worry about that, but it's so hard not to worry about that because that's the first thing you think about. I think as a student, like you would rather not get accommodated because you care about what other people think. But you need to kind of realize that, these people that and their opinions are not going to be there forever. It's like you succeeding in what you end up doing, which is going to be there forever. So making sure that you're persevering, and you're persevering and persistent about what you want is important. Sometimes you may feel like there's an invasion of privacy, and that can only just kind of occur in terms of like if you do decide to like disclose, or sometimes you may think that them having this IEP, like they might have more information about you. I mean, this is a legal document. That's how you get your accommodations. You have to provide these like rheumatologist notes. So a couple forms that I filled before, I had to put screenshots of emails that I've had in the past. So you need to provide this documentation, and unfortunately we have to prove that we have a disability sometimes. And so that's the documentation that they require. It may not be consistent across teachers. Like you might have one teacher saying, hey, I'll accommodate you for this, but the other one saying, I'm not going to do that, given that you gave them the same paperwork. And so it might be inconsistent. It's important to talk to people about it. We'll talk a little bit about how to solve some of these challenges. And then you might feel like other people might say, oh, I'm jealous that you get to stay inside. I'm jealous that you get a scribe. I'm jealous that you get to write in a different room. But they don't understand the actual pain, the challenges that you go through every single day. And so it's important to remind yourself about that. And then just kind of like self-doubt is another challenge that a lot of people have. I think there's some things in the chat. Okay. So if you're denied, what do you do? So you review the reasons on why you were denied accommodations. Most likely, if you have a diagnosis, I see, and you have a physician supporting you, I see no reason why they should deny you. But you can be denied by a professor or a teacher. It doesn't have to be denied by like the school implementing it, but it could be denied by like a faculty member or something like that. Remember to check your rights. Even to this day, I'm going through university policies and I'm reading them. I'm saying, hey, like this teacher didn't do this, or they broke this specific policy. So make sure that you know your rights and you read about accommodations and what you're allowed to get. And then if that person that you're dealing with is not accommodating you and not wanting to listen to you, request a meeting with another decision maker who may have more of a say. So in my case, if a teacher was not accommodating me, I would then reach out to like the chair or a vice dean or a dean or someone higher in that field. Always go to your learning specialist, but sometimes learning specialists are not, in university at least, are not always linked to the problem or sort of anything like that. So go to your learning specialist. If there's no answers there, try to do your research on who else can you talk to. Don't give up. It's like, just don't give up is what I would say. I think there's a lot of times where you feel like you want to give up, but it's not worth it, because once you give up, then you're not going to get accommodations, and then all the other students with disabilities are not going to get accommodations. So that's how I kind of think about it. I'm advocating for myself, but I'm also advocating for so many people who will need those accommodations. And then, yeah, keep fighting for your rights. I think that's the most important. So how to advocate for yourself. Like I mentioned, know your rights, know you have an IEP or you have different forms. Research kind of what the available resources and accommodations are. Be prepared, so make sure that you get your medical documentation. You articulate what your needs are or what your child's needs are. And over time, they will change. Like you saw, the document I had in high school was so long and so detailed, but in university, it's just, okay, breaks, extra time, that's it, super brief. So it definitely changes over time, and it gets better, trust me, like so much better. And you also learn how to deal with situations, and you gain so many skills from it. So, be really assertive and clear. Say like, I need this, I need extra time. Use the I. I say also be really calm and professional and just focus on collaboration. It's important that everyone works together in those types of settings. And like I said, you need to be persistent, patient. You need to build relationships with like your teachers, professors, disability coordinators. Make sure that you have your parents or guardians involved, whoever your support system is. And I would say the biggest thing is document everything. If there's a situation where your child was not accommodated, write it down. If a teacher said something to your child, make sure it's in writing and sent back to that teacher. Hey, unfortunately today, like this is what happened. Like reiterate it, have everything in writing, because all those things are so important at the end of the day. If anything happens, if you need to fight for your rights, if you need to like advocate for yourself, you need those documentations or proof that you need to send to anyone else. You need everything to be written. You need the details, the dates, the time, like so detailed. And I've only realized that at university now. So any issues that may come up, if someone says something to your child or you experience something, make sure you have it written down. Make sure you have it documented, whether that is like in a notebook or a Google Doc. Just keeping that all in one place would be really helpful, because in any instances that you might need to refer back to it, you'll have that all written down. And then always try to kind of like practice self-care. It's going to be super stressful at the beginning, but things get so much better. Know what your limits are and don't overexert yourself, and kind of reflect on these experiences that you're going through now, and realize that like it will get better, and you can kind of ask for feedback and strengthen your approach through like community members that you talk to in the chronic illness community. So I've also attached a template over here, and you could take a picture of it, or I can share this afterwards, but this is sort of how I would write an email to my teacher. You don't need to. So for example, I said, I have been diagnosed with blah, blah, blah. You don't have to say that. You can just say that, hi, I need these accommodations. Like, this is what it is, but this is how I would write my letter, and I would attach the forms or any documentation to my teacher. This is what I use in university now. In high school, it's mainly the parents making those decisions. I did feel really lonely at the beginning, but I ended up kind of talking to more people living with chronic illness through this like podcast and foundation I created, and also being engaged in research and talking to other people and communities. So I know Lupus Canada has some great resources to like meet other people as well. And so I at least was so lonely for the first 2 years of my condition and like being diagnosed. In high school, I didn't find anyone else that had arthritis. There was another girl though that had another chronic illness in my gym class. So we both kind of sat out. I never knew what the concern was, and she never knew what was with me either. We just sat out together. But I think reaching out from outside of school, I don't think you'll be able to quickly find people in school with the same condition as you. I think going to your resources and support groups and talking to a social service worker or someone else that will provide you with community support is important, where you get to meet other young people. So like now I talk to a lot of people in my organization that like are my age, and I get to learn things from them. Like I bought a compression glove because someone told me about that, and now it's like so helpful. So I think joining different communities is so important, and that's what helped me feel less lonely. And this is my social media. If anyone is interested, you can scan the QR code or you can just search up Take a Pain Check. And this is my email if you're interested in chatting with me. We also have a resource sheet that'll be up on the website, which Ariana can probably talk a little bit more about. But yeah, thank you so much. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you so much, Natasha. So much information and such valuable information that you've been able to provide today, and the resources that you've been able to share with everyone. As I mentioned in the chat box, this will be is recorded and will be available on our website, so you can re-listen to it or share with someone else that you think might be interested in learning a little bit more about accommodations. As we've noted, accommodations differ school board by school board, which is province by province. But inquire with your school as to what accommodations are available to you, both at the primary school level and post-secondary as well, because they are definitely available. You just have to see what's going to work for you or for your child in regards to their disease. We appreciate your time, Natasha. I'm not sure if anybody has any additional questions at this time, but we also are working with Natasha on providing some additional resources, and we will have those available on our website as well. So please check back in about 24 hours and you'll see further information available. Great. I think if there's
Perfect.
no more questions, I think, Ariana, we can probably close this out. I'm sure, Natasha, you are exhausted from all of that, but we really appreciate your time. And as I mentioned, it's such valuable information and sharing your experiences.
Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha, for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.